Welcome back to Outspoken. If you haven't been here in a while, here we go again. Episode 132, Joe.
Man,
imagine
I feel
that.
old.
We're getting going.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, everybody, before we get started, make sure and smash that like button, subscribe to Outspoken, share the show with everyone you know, and hit the bell icon to get updated when we upload new episodes. It really helps the algorithm and all that kind of good stuff. You know, if we are your favorite podcasters, definitely help us out by spreading the word.
Or at least the most diverse for all you DEI believers. We are kind of diverse.
We're pretty diverse.
Yeah, we talk about everybody. Anyway, hey, Jay, you ever notice how every few years society picks a new buzzword to obsess over, right? Last decade it was woke. We used that word till it died. And now it's decolonize.
Yeah, apparently everything's got to be decolonized now. Your classroom, your church, your breakfast cereal. Can't start the day without a little anti-imperialist milk.
Right? And it used to mean something powerful, right? People breaking free from like real oppression, I should say. Real empires. Now it's been hijacked by people who think deleting Western civilization is somehow progress.
It's not about justice anymore. It's about dismantling the very system that makes freedom possible.
So today we're peeling back the layers of the decolonized movement, where it started, how it got twisted, and why it's not liberation anymore. It's lunacy with a hashtag.
Peel it back like an onion, Joe. Hey, listen, buckle up, folks. It's time to decolonize your common sense right here on Outspoken, where we don't whisper the truth. We yell it at the woke. All right, everybody, welcome back to Decolonize or Destroy, episode 132. Gosh, Joe, it's just the years moving along here. So before we get like crazy into this, let me do a little definition. Decolonization is defined as the process of a colony gaining independence from a colonizing power and the subsequent dismantling of colonial structures. It encompasses both the political shift to self-governance and a broader cultural movement to reclaim indigenous sovereignty, traditions, and knowledge from colonial oppression. This can be achieved through violent struggles, peaceful negotiations, or a combination of methods, with the legacy and work of decolonization continuing in areas like education, cultural practices, and the reevaluation of historical narratives.
In a bubble, what Jay is saying, and I think, because sometimes I misunderstand what Jay is saying because I am who I am. Anyway, so decolonization meant countries freeing themselves from foreign rule, like India from Britain, or African nations like in the 20th century. That was like the real liberation for self-governance, like Jay say, for sovereignty, for cultural revival. That is the key that when people talked about decolonization, they were looking at, right? But now to decolonize means erase like the Western influence entirely. And that's like what we gain, what we've built as a nation. For example, universities pushing decolonize your syllabus, replacing science and logic with ideology and lived experience. It's almost like a cultural cleansing campaign masquerading as compassion. And I think the biggest thing that we wanted to talk about this is this young girl. She got popular one day because she was speaking in the UN and you are destroying. She was like, I couldn't understand her.
Greta Thunberg?
That girl. She's that one. That thing. Anyway, she's gone from saving the environment to saving Palestine, right? With her little caravan of boats that are out there for human aid or whatever she was doing. And like she's all over the place. This girl doesn't know what she wants at the end of the day, but she was wearing, on this last time she got busted for trying to take aid into Palestine, she had this shirt. And remember I showed you that picture and it said, decolonize. And I'm like, does she even know what that, like, is she old enough to understand what that means or what she's saying? It's almost saying like from the rivers to the sea. Right, when they were going that campaign, the Hamas and all that were, and all these crazy people protesting in America from the rivers to the sea, which really means to eradicate,
absolutely,
the Jewish people.
Eradicate, period.
And so she's
not
wearing
the thing is not the Jewish state, but the Jewish people. Period.
Yeah,
which there's a big difference with that, right? Correct. So if you want to tear down the American system, right, which is kind of what we're going to get into here momentarily,
correct.
it doesn't mean you want to kill all the people that live in America, right? You just want to dismantle that system. However, there are people that do feel that white people in the society are cause of all the problems and everything. So the same thing with this Greta Thunberg deal. Back in the day, England, the saying was the sun never sets on the British Empire, right? Because no matter where you were in the world, there was an island or some place that they had control over, that the sun was always shining on it.
Yeah.
You have places like in Africa and India and places like that. Let's say that England never went into those places and never had any influence on them whatsoever. What do you think they would be like right now? You know,
I don't know. Let's look at the Conga, right?
Yeah, and some people would say, well, England made it worse and did this and this and that. You know, a lot of those places probably would have never had electricity. They wouldn't have had, like the kids like Greta Thunberg, one of their big things is obviously getting clean water to places and getting electricity to all these different areas of the world. And it's like, well, how do you think that stuff started to get there in the first place? Because that's how it gets there, is from that colonization, right? Because so there are places now in the world, like in Central America and South America, that there's tribes that are deep in the jungles. They don't want anybody messing with those people. Let them live the way they're going to live. Don't bring them t-shirts. Don't bring them food. Don't bring them malaria shots. Nothing. Just let them live their lives the way they are, because we don't have native people anymore anywhere in the world, if you really think about it. Because
they're also so deep in the jungle that it would be difficult to make an impact in their colony, in their livelihood, unless we totally remove them from that and put them into a Western society, which they probably would not be able to understand or acclimate to, right? Probably be destructive to their future, where today, because of what happened years and years ago, we are able to pull ourselves out from certain conditions and live where we are today. There's a difference between acknowledging history and then erasing it. I guess when America started, we weren't really looking to erase our history. We were looking to expand it. Let's face it, America was a huge country. People were just tired of England. We didn't come to colonize America. We came for a better way of living. In the process that things happened, absolutely. There was hostiles here, and there were people here coming to try to live and create a new colony. But there was plenty of land to go around. And the problem is that when we look at things like that, people want to look at just the negative impact that it created, and they leave away the positive impact of what it's done. Like what you were saying earlier, without that type of movement, without Europeans coming here, even Hispanics from southern Mexico, central Mexico, moving northerly, we wouldn't have the culture we have today. Correct. It's kind of mixed in together with European culture, Latin America culture, even a little bit of Canadian up in Washington, where they're just so soft. So there's all kinds of stuff that's happened during that time. And for us to sit here and say, hey, today in modern times, to me is ridiculous. In modern times, to wear, it's like wearing a shirt, stop slavery. I'm like, dum, we don't have slavery. Why are you wearing a shirt that says stop slavery? You're an idiot, right? So wearing a shirt that says decolonize is like, we're at a point where we can decolonize, right? Because we have a modern society living and moving forward. How would that look like? Exactly. How would that look like? And that to me is kind of ridiculous. So,
well, and how far back do you go to? That's the other thing, is how far do you decolonize to? You take like North America, Central and South America, all the way up into Alaska and everything, right? So you had Eskimos, you had what we consider Native Americans in the northern part of the United States, and then you get down where you had Aztecs and Mayans and all that kind of stuff. So all of these different tribes, they didn't agree with one another and didn't get along. And you would say, okay, so the Native Americans that were, probably above where the modern day Mexico United States border is, all the way up to Alaska, you had more of the typical Western culture idea of Native Americans, right? The whole teepee thing and everything. They migrated based on weather and food supplies, buffalo, all these kind of things.
Tatonkas.
Then you had Tatonka.
Yeah.
And then you had the Eskimos, which are still to this day kind of doing their thing, but they don't live in igloos like they used to, right? And so if we do take away,
they've modernized.
Exactly. They have. Now, if you take those two societies, they were pretty primitive and simple, right? Simple lives, didn't have a lot. Now compare them to like the Aztecs and the Mayans, right? That built basically great cities at that time, for that time. So should we decolonize them and say, hey, you guys are too much. You're impeding on the simple people's life, right? Because that's what they did. And they killed anybody and sacrificed and all that kind of stuff. So at what point do we go back to say we're decolonizing everything? My dad's side side of the family, going back far enough, there's Native American ancestry there, right? They got off the reservation because they didn't want to be a part of that.
Correct.
And on the birth certificate and stuff like that, they actually put white on there because they just wanted to get away from that, and they didn't want to be persecuted by the white men, of that time. The kids nowadays, the Native American kids, drive cars. They don't speak their native language anymore. Most of them don't want to deal with powwows or anything like that. The only reason they do that is to make money. Now, there are some people that do it because the heritage, they truly want to keep a part of it,
So in Arizona, New Mexico are all in a very high, if you want to call it, area of touring for powwows.
And there are a lot of those folks that truly from their hearts, they enjoy that. Again, a lot of the younger kids, they don't want to have anything to do with that anymore. It's like me, I have on my mom's side, we have, family that goes back to Dutch, Irish, German, and all that kind of stuff.
Correct.
I don't want to live in, at a Dutch windmill anymore. I mean, I don't want to have clogs to walk around in. We've come forward and modernized. And the thing is I'm glad, whether it was England, France, Spain, whoever it is that brought things like the wheel, polio, and electricity, and polio and chicken packs and all that kind of stuff. No, but really, I mean, you think about today, tell a kid, go back to Greta Thunberg, tell that little girl, hey, listen, we're going to decolonize everything for you. But you need to give us your cell phone. There's no more internet. It doesn't exist anymore. PlayStation? Pff, what's that? Internet's gone. Cars are gone.
Start messing with PlayStation, brother. Don't start playing with that.
What did we take the other night? A Waymo, a self-driving car?
Yeah. You guys dare take away my
Waymo. Yeah.
But here's the thing. Now, do I support any type of decolonization? I do. And let me tell you which one it is before you get crazy on me, Jay, because I see your eyes and how you, what is that called? The Sharia law in Iran. Before that, how was Iran? Iran was almost a type of living a Western civilization, right? They modern universities. They had beautiful fountains. They had, they were huge on that. And then Sharia law came in, and today, what looks like the 60s. So I could see that. Hey, let's decolonize from that type of behavior and go back to Western civilization where it gave people hope. And so here's the problem about decolonization, and see if you agree with me. There might be, you might not agree, but that's why we do this. But decolonization, once it starts impacting us in our Western culture, because like you said, it is hard now to do. But is it? That mentality, again, we have to look at how society runs today. In generations from generations, when we thought about things, you and I, we were thinking about things in more progressive way. And now when I mean progressive, I don't mean like lefty progressive, but in moving up and moving forward, right? Because we wanted something better. But today's society, with the progressive left, things have kind of shifted, right? And this is where some of these ideologies come from, like the whole decolonization. So how does decolonization look in a Western society like today? Let's talk about 4 things that I think are key in showing that. One is going to be education. They've completely done this already. You agree, brother, because you and I have talked about how our we were talking about this the other day. We had a couple of intoxicating drinks and some cigars, and we were talking about very important things because that's where most of our ideas come from. Education was one of the biggest things that we talked about, right?
Absolutely.
They're so focused, hyper-focused on removing Eurocentric teachings where kids, they can't even name like the original U.S. president before Obama. Maybe they'll get Clinton. They know 14 different genders. They can name all 14 and add like 3 more. And another thing, and this is something.
Yeah, they can't name 3 presidents, but they can name the 3 Kardashian sisters.
Correct.
It's ridiculous.
And then there's another thing that you and I have noticed is another decolonization that they take into is decolonizing Christianity. They strip Jesus of any kind of divinity, and then they turn him into like a woke activist, like Jesus, like he's some hippie. But this is again them unraveling what they think decolonization is. And of course, we have history. Well, it's one of the biggest things that was happening during the ridiculous, dumb, ignorant BLM, Antifa stuff, rioting that was happening. They were eradicating statues of our history. They were renaming schools. They were renaming mountains, bro. They were renaming military bases. They were writing facts to fit emotion. They eradicated that because it doesn't feel good to me. Let's change the name, right? And they started changing names to a freaking mountain because, that sounds oppressing. That's, again, they're trying to decolonize history. Ridiculous. And of course, the last one, something that I mentioned in the first one under education, was gender, right? We totally have decolonized gender. We have eliminated masculinity and femininity in its entirely, and now biology is offensive. How dare you? Like Greta says, how dare you?
How dare you?
How dare you? Crying with the crocodile tears. This, my friends, is not activism. It's a cultural lobotomy that's happening to our society. And it's being done under the banner of inclusivity. And God, dude, I am so tired of hearing about those DEI, man, that nothing is further from the truth in the stuff they're talking about, in the realities versus their realities. We have reality what it is versus what they think it is. And
Right.
really, it's tiresome, bro. It's really tiresome.
Or what they want it to be. That's the biggest thing for me. You were mentioned feelings. That's such a big thing now. Well, I feel that it hurts my feelings, so you shouldn't be able to say that or do that. Or, well, you don't mind hurting other people's feelings or saying what you want that's hateful, Why can't everybody say that to you? But it
Right.
becomes this whole your speech is more important than their speech kind of thing,
Yeah.
and no speech and nobody's place in this world is more important than the other. One of the key things, and you and I have talked about this before, is that we have gotten away simply our Constitution. I love our Constitution. I think is it perfect in every way? No, probably not. But it is darn close to it, man. There has never been a society that has had documentation written by men that stressed over everything. I mean, if you read like the Federalist Papers and stuff, these men had such a burden on their backs to make a set of documents that would rule a nation, but help the nation rule itself.
Yeah.
And it had never been done before, ever. Nothing like it. And one of the key things that I don't think people truly grasp and understand with like the United States being formed was that when they did the Declaration, what is a declaration? We declare that we're going to do something, right? The Declaration of Independence. What is independence? Independent of something else. We were declaring our independence from England. Seems
Correct.
like a simple definition and all that. The second those men signed their name on that document, it was a death warrant to each and every one of them from the King of England, because they were basically putting the middle finger up and saying, screw you, King. We don't care about you anymore. You have nothing to do with us. So I don't think people fully grasp how terrifying that would be. Like, we wouldn't do that nowadays. We would be too scared to do that kind of thing. Those guys were were amazing. And so,
well, think about it, man. They were living in Europe. They had their security of the crown protecting them, and from war. They grew to be a great nation. That they were being protected by the crown, and now they're independent with no leadership, no nothing, but the senior elder men of the colony or whoever was there was running that family, and they were charged with protecting that family. And we have to consider, right? They had hostiles in the area because there was Native Americans there. That brought to us today, that's very scary, right? Because we're used to our comforts, we're used to our Starbucks, we're used to our cell phones. We've become so dependent on electronics, on social media, on just things that we would not survive a day in the wilderness without some kind of connectivity to the world, right? Because we like when people talk back in the days, when we were growing up, people talked about being off the grid. That sounded cool. Like, oh, you're out in the wilderness, not worried about anything. Today, you say that, you're like, I don't know, it's a little scary, man. My anxiety is gonna go up. It's crazy stuff.
Right. But I can't see my therapist for 30 days. Oh my God.
So basically, all they're saying is that everything Western has become evil. Everything we do, like, look at it today. Our democracy is no longer a democracy. It's being assaulted by the left every day. They're giving it new definitions. They're talking about, everything that Trump is this and he's a dictator and all this stuff,
which is fascist Nazi.
Correct. Well, another thing that's lately has been the reason why, one of the biggest reasons why Charlie Kirk is dead now is because the freedom of speech that has been so diluted with the sides each speaking their own truths about what is a freedom of speech, the internet, everything. Because why? The softies, the people that work with emotion, decided that there's such a thing called hate speech. There's no such thing as hate speech, right? It's just speech, whether it's ugly speech, whether it's hurtful speech, whatever speech that you don't agree with, it's still just speech. It doesn't hurt anybody but your feelings, and feelings don't really count. And when it comes to how people are acting today with this whole decolonization, is you are acting based on your feelings, and then that draws to affecting someone else's feelings, which you don't care about, right? Like, because all you care about is your selfish feeling. And so that's where we get into this dangerous part about this whole decolonization. That mentality itself is so lefty, and I hate using those terms, I really do, because to put everybody under one category is not fair. This is what they're pointing to. This is the kind of instability that they want America to live in today, and they want these people to live in this rebellion without responsibility. It's a revolution without a plan. They're just kind of like, everybody go muck. You ask Antifa why they're doing things, they have no idea. You question them and they'll stop and freeze, and then they just start cursing you out because they have no answer to anything. And you and I have seen that time and time again. When give me examples as to why this person is racist, and they're like, you're an idiot, and they walk away, right? Because they get called on their hypocrisy, on their lies, and they can't support that. Right. So their movement, this whole decolonized movement, this whole hate speech thing, all this is it's a contradiction to the reality of things. It's almost
hypocrisy, my friend.
At its best, bro. You could just see it on TV. It's just a performance activism, right? It's a rebellion. It's a rebellion sponsored by Amazon Prime. With Prime Days coming up, ladies and gentlemen, make sure that anyway. And they don't even realize that they're fighting the very thing keeping their lives comfortable, bro. They don't get that. Decolonize, but then you okay, we're gonna move you to this country. No, bro, you know that this country is one of, look, let's be honest, it's the only country left behind now that you're able to talk all this crap and not get any repercussions from it, right? Because 100%. Apparently you can't do that in Europe anymore because people are getting arrested left and right for preaching Christianity, for sending mean tweets, anything like that. They're getting arrested, they're going to jail, they're getting fines. In America,
for like 2 months for saying something slightly, and when I say slightly offensive, right? Where if you're offended by that, bro, you're going to be offended by life.
Bro, well, you're not wrong, but here's the thing, bro. They hate the very system that gives them the microphone. Are you guys that stupid? Let's break it down here. Are you that dumb that you don't understand that you have been given a platform free of charge, free of guilt and conviction to spew your hate with no repercussion? None whatsoever. Go at it. Kill them softly, like that song would say, right? Killing them softly. And do your thing. And you know what? We as American citizens, this is what we're going to do. We're going to stand there, hear it, and say, hey, great for you. Or we're going to keep walking, going to our jobs with our lattes, right? We have that choice, right? We have a choice to speak. We have a choice not to listen. That's our choice. But to sit there and say we're gonna decolonize because it's affected who? You've gained nothing but popularity on your platform because we are in this Western civilization that started from colonizing a very mass country with a lot of room, and it still has a lot of room. Go out there. I mean, we have wildernesses yet still in Colorado, Northern Arizona, New Mexico, in every state. There's a lot of room still. The way I see it, brother, is it's very simple. What we did by this Western civilization that we created, and earlier you said that the Constitution is not perfect. Well, so the only perfect book that I know of is the Bible, right? That you and I would agree on.
Amen, sir.
However, I feel that, and this is the confusing part to a lot of people, that the Constitution they say, well, it's kind of vague. Well, yeah, it was intended that way because they knew progress would happen. They knew that, for example, the 2A, they knew that, hey, look, they're not always going to have muskets. I'm sure they're going to have something more powerful and things like that. This is not a country of dum-dums. I'm sure they know that we don't mean tanks. You know what I mean? I think if we try to start adjusting it at this point, it would really cause problems. I think that when we got more depth into the Constitution, they saw some opportunities, which are now the amendments which they created. And I think now we're fine. Now, could we add another amendment maybe on the future that something comes up that we didn't really thought about that is impacting? Absolutely. That's the whole purpose of that, right? Comes from a bipartisan vote where people have to agree and think like, hey, is this going to be impactful to society or not? Right. And I think the biggest problem, and I think you would agree, is that it's not colonization that's the problem. It's people's mentality, their outlook on things. You're fighting the very thing they gave you the liberty to fight for.
We now have such a separated, state system that you have California doing one thing and Arizona right next door. We're completely opposite. Yeah. Arizona is always top 3 best in gun laws, right? That we're pretty free on everything. You can open carry, you can concealed carry without any permits. In California, most of that stuff you can't do at all anymore. I mean, most
ammo's a problem. Buying ammo's a problem.
Buying ammo's a problem. You have to use your driver's license, like buying Sudafed and stuff over there. You have to use your driver's license to get stuff. And I know Gavin Newsom, I don't know if it's went through yet, but he's already done a deal to make the Glock company make it where they're considered, something that you can't buy over there, which is just crazy. Back in the day when
I
it was
think
like,
I
no,
think that's going to be challenged
it's
if
going to
that
be,
does, it's
well,
going to
it
be
will
challenged.
be.
NRA will challenge that
Oh
because
yeah, and
now you're getting into dangerously
FPC and all
close.
that.
Well, you're getting dangerously close, brother, into something that is a constitutional right, and I think, and you're right about the states are given the opportunity to regulate them, which means, hey, if you want to narrow it down a little bit more, that's great. Like where they could carry it, like school zones, libraries, blah blah blah.
Correct.
You have that right. But again, have a federally protected right to have these. You could come short of taking it from them, but you can't
Right.
take it from them. You know what I mean?
Well, so then that runs in reverse too, because then the people that are not gun people would say, well, that's right. The state should be able to regulate it and pull it back down and everything. Okay. So you say that, but then you have the federal government that made marijuana at one time. I know that's all opened up, but it was illegal.
Correct.
States said, nah, they can sell it. They can do whatever with marijuana. And all those laws have changed quite a bit over time. But those
Even Trump wants it now. Even Trump wants a little bit of the THC going on.
THC going on. Well, my thing with it, so I don't smoke, never smoked it or anything like that, but I think it's stupid. I think it's really stupid that we have young men that have been serving 10-year sentences in prison or whatever for weed.
Oh yeah, that's ridiculous. Especially now that it's medicinal, that people actually use it.
And then you have people that did physical harm crimes to another person and they served 2 or 3 years or something like that. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Kind of circling back to this whole thing, there's so much desire to be ultra progressive and move so much forward that sometimes we become regressive, right?
Yeah.
And turn back the clock on things. And again, we've talked to all these things come full circle, man. We've talked about gun laws and things that have been put in place. Like in the early 90s, the gun laws changed for schools. Schools, you used to be able to carry, I think like 3 or 4 episodes ago, we talked about this, right? You used to be able
in a pickup truck.
In a pickup truck. So as soon as those laws changed, then you couldn't take guns to school anymore. People listening to this that are young are like, what? Are you crazy? There would be guns in school. There'd be so much violence. No, there wasn't. And that's the key thing.
There wasn't violence.
So it's not.
Because they knew every kid had a shotgun or a 22 rifle on their pickup rack.
Yeah. And back then, you wouldn't go to your truck to grab your gun to go after somebody. You'd go and pop them,
Yeah.
The guys would fight. Now everybody's scared. They're little sissies. So now they've got to go grab a gun or something like that, right?
You went sissy on us.
You went there.
You went there.
Yeah. So why is it that we had an entire swath of time in history that we didn't have the issues with gun violence and stuff like that, and now we do? Well, it's because the mentality has changed, and part of it is this regressive mentality that we have, that there's nothing that I can do to change, to change the system, so I'm going to force change in the system through violence and everything else. And it's where we are. I mean, we have become this, spoiled society, right? So exactly like you said, the people that are crying the most, right? Would you say they hate the system that gives them the microphone? Yeah. Those people that are crying the most are the ones that are going to hate the system the most if it gets changed, regressively back the other direction.
Yeah, because unfortunately, it's going to impact them as well, and that's what they don't realize, right? They're out there with all the Greta Thunberg, whatever her name is, of the world. they insist on this whole we're colonized and it brought chaos to society. They're full of shit, because what real decolonization would mean: freeing the mind from propaganda, right? Not the truth. And people are just so fed up with what's happening. You have towns, you have little communities in Chicago where there's Jews and black people living, and you have Antifas going in there, and you know what's happening? They're kicking them out. Get the hell out of here. We don't want to deal with your stuff. You don't belong here. People are getting tired of this woke ideology. I'm sorry, we can't use that. That was the last decade. With this decolonization stuff going on, right? Like, we need to start going back and reclaiming critical thinking, something that we lost so much of. We need to start bringing back family values. We need to start bringing back faith. We need to start respecting ourselves, right? Based on our history. Look back, man. Just look how we've come to this society. And I feel it's because now, honestly, we have way too much freedom and people don't know what to do with it. They get bored and like, let's start a revolution. Oh my God, let's decolonize. You know what I mean? And so it means taking responsibility for your future, right? Instead of blaming your ancestors. I'm sick and tired of like, we need reparations. Like, you've not suffered once in your life. You have the most freedom that everyone's ever had.
Right.
Be quiet, So we need to learn from our past without being owned by it. And people are just want to be this mentality of being victimized and woe is me, and like, this is them, woe is me, while they're sipping their latte on their phone, and
Yeah.
if you look back in our times, even where you and I grew up, we got punished, bro. We went to our bedroom. We grew up in a society. We had no TVs in our room. We had no computers. We had no phone. We had to have that extension cord on that handset that goes 5 miles from the kitchen to your bedroom
To make a phone call.
to make a phone call and be private, right? But anyone could pick up the phone and hear it. That was tremendous for us. We were traumatized with those things, right? Now you send the kid to the room, you take their phone. Guess what? They're communicating through their iPad or their instant messaging on the computer. I'm like, oh, you
Right.
little bastards, right? So
Yeah. Or they've got Microsoft Live on their Xbox or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, you're like,
I
hate these,
whatever.
I hate these kids. But but real freedom isn't about tearing things down. It's about building something worth. And God, we have built something so beautiful in our society, and it's always those crazy people that are tearing it down, that are calling it unjust, that are finding reasons to hate America and hate their lives only because mommy did and daddy didn't spank them enough growing up, right? Or because our universities are brainwashing them to think that you are being oppressed by the government only because the man that's in it we don't like, right? It's just ridiculous how society is fighting to be free from colonization, but yet they're following these sheep that's leading them straight to it. You know what I mean?
That's
And
right.
it's ridiculous. Like, come on, guys, let's think for ourselves once, But no, they're too busy, bro. They're too busy donning their green hair with their purple lipstick and fighting a cause that they have no clue what they're fighting for.
Yeah.
And if they could only get a job that could, keep them busy for 8 hours, just 8 hours, I'm asking, a day. It's a win. And, they cry about working a 40-hour shift. And so I think that's going to happen
that's
anytime
right.
soon. So,
Well, like you say, I mean, they are fighting a cause that has no end goal, and they can't explain what the end goal should be to begin with. So,
yeah,
pretty sad.
yeah.
Next time someone says decolonize, ask them, what's the end goal? Because if the answer is burn it all down, that's not progress, that's complete chaos.
And chaos isn't justice, it's the destruction dressed up in activism.
We're not called to destroy, we're called to discern. And that's exactly what we'll keep doing right here on Outspoken.
That's right, baby.
So, guys, listen, before we get out of here, make sure and smash that like button, subscribe to Outspoken, share the show with everyone you know, and hit that bell icon to get updated when we upload new episodes. All right, Joe, this was a good one.
Oh, man, it always is, man. You got to fight the good fight, brother.
We'll do it again next week.
We sure will.
So, everybody, make sure you take care of one another.
And remember, do better, be better.
And as always,
God bless America. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend.
Love you guys. See you Tuesday.